Hey, what's going on? You're tapped in. It's another 180 Creator interview, and I'm your host, Joe Teel. And like always, I got another great guest, Dustin Goodman. What's going on?
What's going on, man? Good day, good night. It's a good evening.
Yes, sir. The tree man. I heard he talks to trees. I don't know.
Yes, I listen to the trees. I do my best to listen to the trees.
Yeah.
I'm the in between what you want to do to your trees and what the trees need done to them.
So the term, what is it? It's an arborist?
I'm an arborist, yes, sir.
Okay, and so that sounds like that's more than just your regular tree cutting guy.
An arborist, I mean, by definition, is one who does care and maintain trees. What we do from the perspective, like when I say I'm an arborist, I look at the trees that you have on your property as an asset in the way that they stand on your property. So like in our area especially, we've got folks that cut trees that like used to be loggers, and they'll often look at the tree as an asset when it's on the way to the mill, right? Now that's good lumber, how they're checking board feet every time they're talking to you, doing an estimate. Then you've got guys that were in like line clearance, the Asplund and Wright Tree Service, they've left line clearance and now they're trimming trees out by your house. Well, they've been trained to look at the tree as a liability, right? Their job is to keep power flowing. So they've looked at, oh, that's a problem. That's a hazard. They're looking at the tree in that way. And not very many people in our region, unfortunately, are looking at the tree as an asset and how it brings value to the property, the shade it does, and the purpose it serves in the urban environment.
Okay, yeah. So there is a difference.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so there's lots of different things that make it like an asset. That makes sense. Like the shade, you're saying.
Yeah, shade, carbon sequestration. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's worried about their carbon footprint right now. Trees sequester tons and tons of carbon, especially like when you're dealing with an urban environment. They're taking pollution out of the air, taking pollution out of the soil, giving us good stuff to breathe. And then also it's hot as hell in Texas. So like when you're sitting under there, every time you pull into a parking lot, where do you look? You look to see if there's a tree you can park up under.
Right, yeah.
But before we build that parking lot or before we build that building, we come through with D6 dozers and track hose and just wipe everything off. Everything off the face of the planet here, and then grade it, and then start from nothing, and then plant little bitty ass trees. When we're in Northeast Texas, and they had to mop out 60, 70 foot oaks and pines by the hundreds to clear that lot.
Damn, we do the trees bad.
Yeah, bro. It's fun sometimes. Like I would be lying if I said I hadn't made my fair share of stumps, and the chaos is my peace in that way. So I'm like a heavy ADHD person. That's how I kind of found this industry. Like I couldn't find something that kept me mentally and physically engaged. Like I could find did hard labor most of my life. And then I went and did like tech support, tier 2, like sitting behind a computer, answering your U-verse questions when your computer messed up, and hated life. Like just looking outside in the summer at the guys mowing the yard, like, bro, I wish I could get paid this to do that. How can I figure that out? And then not long after that, I saw somebody run up a tree with a rope and a harness and was like, yo, I'm doing that forever. Like, that's what I'm going to do. But we weren't doing tree cutting or I wasn't an arborist at that point. I used to run around the country putting lights in trees. So we would put synthetic moonlight in rich folks' trees, basically.
Synthetic moonlight? What is that?
It's a fancy... At the time, it was like mercury vapor. Like we got like metal halide lamps. Every lamp has a glow. We grew up with a lot of the orange high-pressure sodium bulbs, like on the street lights and stuff, that orange glow at night. Well, each one of those type of lamps emits a certain type of glow as it burns whatever gas it's burning. So they would use mercury vapor because it puts off this like greenish glow. And they'd run metal halide transformers to it. And we would just go, dude, like I'd hop on a plane in Dallas, fly to South Florida, hop in a van that they had waiting. We'd the week before ship all of our materials out, and we just bounce around the country. I'd land in, land in West Palm, go down through the Florida Keys, come back up, park in West Palm. Then we fly to Jacksonville, hit that part of Florida, and we had vans like stationed all over the country, just sitting there, and dude, just hop on a plane. And it was 2 weeks out, 2 weeks in. So traveling 50% of the time, and then the rest of the time we were just in Dallas. So like I learned to climbing Jerry Jones trees. I got to like climb every tree on his property in Dallas. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, you should have told him to get rid of the quarterback.
This was 2012, bro. We were still dealing with Romo back then.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was doing that, and then there was like you're saying,
get rid of Dak. No.
Before 10 a.m., you don't go within 100 yards of the house. Like once you're on property, until Mr. Jones leaves, you better not be anywhere near the front of that house.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Dang. So those mercury lights, isn't mercury bad?
It's bad. So, and that was the other thing. So now when you see that, it's all LED. So 2012, 12 years ago, LED technology was nowhere near where it's at now. So it was super inefficient. The bulbs, how when they go bad, they start flickering. So anytime we'd start converting stuff to LED, it would be just, you'd come in and it looks like a little slow ass strobe light going on at somebody's house. So all the lights were mercury vapor, but that's like running these big ass transformers. So you're starting with line voltage, spinning that up like any transformer does, and then kicking like 270 volts out to the light. So people were getting like entire electrical sub panels put on the outside of their property just to power lights in their trees. And our job, they basically figured out in the 50s and 60s that it was easier to teach tree climbers basic electrical than it was to teach electricians to climb trees. And so they started that's what it was. It was the hardest way to climb possible, but every other aspect of that industry was way more professional than what you get when you get a tree guy, because our standard client was somebody like a Jerry Jones, or I got to climb next door to Oprah's house. I got to climb in places I'm from East Texas with no college. I ain't never supposed to see some of the places they took me to because I was climbing a tree and changing a light bulb.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it was gnarly. It was gnarly.
Them are rich clients. You're describing the whole process. And I'm like, yeah.
And I mean, we had blueprints of the house when we get there. So like you deal with underground utilities and stuff and the stuff you deal with. So like we'd show up and imagine having a blueprint and the schematic of every piece of conduit laid across the property. And it's all on like an AutoCAD drawing. Or back in the day, they were all doing it like the company. The guy that created it was John Watson Landscape Illumination in Dallas. They're still active. They do stuff around here in Texarkana, and they still have crews bouncing around the country. Like at one time, they were all over the world. And then the old man passed away. Rich kids did what rich kids do. And, you know what I'm saying? The company ended up where it's at now, but they still got crews bouncing around. Sometimes they'll be in Texarkana. You might see a little van running around with it.
Man, hanging lights in the trees.
Bro, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm going to do that forever. And like, they were like, first thing he told me, white boys don't climb. I was like, what you mean? And I was like, no, it was all a crew of Mexican dudes, and they didn't have no white boys climbing. I was like, bro, I
can climb.
Yeah, I can climb too. Let me try. And then one day, one of those guys, like I became basically the right-hand man to those guys. I was 100 pounds heavier than most of the dudes working with them at that time. I was running around at like 240. And so I would move the ladders from tree to tree. Dude would get up there, he'd get started. I'd move the ladder to the next tree, tie on whatever he needed, and just studied what he was doing. Sometimes I'd follow him up the ladder and get up there and be like, okay. And I see the knot they were tying. It was super simple, but like at that point, it might as well have been like magic. Like, what is he's getting paid to climb trees. And so at that time, I didn't touch on this. Like I was making like $25 an hour at AT&T, and I hated life. And I was like, man, if I could just find something outside that paid this. And this is 2011 maybe. Well, I get to this and I see the dudes. I'm digging trenches for the power for one of these lighting systems. I was there to do Christmas lights. I used to run those on the house. And while I'm sitting there digging trenches for $10 an hour, bro, like with the straight shooter, two dudes come out of a little S10, throw a rope up a tree, and they just start stringing lights. And I'm like, what? So he's getting paid? That's a job? And they're like, yeah, he's getting 22 an hour and he's getting 25 an hour. And I was like, bro, there it is. I'm going to climb trees.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that forever. And that was 12, 13 years ago now.
Yeah. And so at what point did you go from just climbing for work to climbing to like competition wise?
So started with the lighting, bounced around the country doing it the hard way. I started cutting trees not long after that, answering every Craigslist ad I could find for a tree climber between like Houston, Dallas, and Austin. And then just, bro, I almost got myself hurt a few times, almost got myself killed a few times. And realized around 2015 when I had an accident, basically. Like I had a tree. Last job of a land clearing project, I was taking the last tree out that we needed to drop. The firewood guys were going to haul it off, and this tree had a limb sticking off to the side. And I was like, well, before you throw it and mess up the neighbor's property here, let me just run up and pop that back limb off. I say little back limb. It was like this big around. Yeah. And I run up, and I was using a work positioning system that didn't adjust under load. So I get up to the top of the tree. You know, I'm wearing my old Army ACU pants, Army boonie cap. This is before helmets or anything I was using. And I make the cut, and the limb had an odd shape on the backside to it. So what I thought was a sufficient notch on the bottom side of this 40-foot lever, you know, thousands of pounds sticking out here. I made what I thought was a sufficient face cut to get rid of enough fibers to cut it. Started the top of my back cut, and then the tree just starts splitting with my lanyard wrapped around it.
Oh, no.
So with that not adjusting under load, what that did was like it starts pinning me, drop the chainsaw, and it peels, as it peels, sucking me up against the tree, pins my arm, ended up cracking a few ribs, and like I'm pinned in the tree at like 35 feet. Just basically sitting there. Every time I draw a breath, the pressure of this thing trying to pull me closer is taking the ability to take that next breath. And none of my guys are on the ground. Nobody, like, we train aerial rescue and stuff now, and dealing with situations like that, bro, none of that was in the mind. Like I got one cut to make, and then I got a 10,000, like the rest of this $10,000 check's coming. We're good. Like it's Friday. Let's go. Everything that, you know, you see with like the OSHA stuff that adds up, like last tree on a 2-week job. It's Friday afternoon. We're trying to get done, wrap up for the weekend, and just made a stupid mistake that was completely avoidable. But when that happened, what saved my life was the limb was so long that it touched the ground. So like it's no longer peeling me because like where I connect, like I have something that's connected by this huge strap essentially to my hips. So I've got a D-ring here, and that's wrapped around, and that's what's collapsing, and it's pulling my hips and my body into the tree.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so the guy on the ground that was out there working with me starts trying to help. And so he starts cutting the tips off of that thing, thinking he's taking weight off of it. What he's doing is he's letting it drop further. And so at that point, I broke some ribs. Like it dropped and ended up breaking my ribs. Yeah, well, it exacerbated what I had screwed up, basically. But so his boss pulls up. They call him. He pulls back up on the job site. Nobody's called 911 yet. Like
how long were you up there?
Probably 4 or 5 minutes. It was like, I absolutely could have died in that 4 or 5 minutes. Like I could have been dealing with something internal, could have broke my back. Like that's what I thought was going to happen. Like when I made the cut, I started the top cut. When it peeled, I'm like, I'm going to break my back and I'm dying in this tree. And my daughter was my daughter's 9 years old now. She was 9 months old at the time. And so like I was sitting there in my brain, no life insurance, no nothing. And I'm about to die in this tree. And I didn't. And so it was like, okay, you don't get too many of these. I'm going to change some shit. And I was working with a local company here in Texarkana at that time, back and forth around that time frame. And I saw a sticker on the back of one of their trucks. It was like a heart in a tree. And it was Tree Stuff was the name of the website. They had some training that was going on. I showed up, paid $200 to go to Indianapolis, paid the flight and everything, get there. And I showed up in Ariats and blue jeans coming from Texarkana and like a wife beater. Like, yeah, I climb trees. I'm pretty good at it. Bro, I got my whole head blown off. Like it was 12 of the most knowledgeable professionals I had ever met. Like I got 2 days of stuff that I couldn't have absorbed 15% of at that time. It was like rigging forces. And like I found Arborist. I found this part of the industry that I'm now an advocate for and a part of, where like everybody's in a helmet and everybody's in safety equipment and everybody's better than me. Like I got there, bro, and everybody was better than me. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I'm still loud. So like they had a couple competitions and contests at this thing. They had like a scavenger hunt where you had to do like land navigation, chase stuff around and climb trees. I sucked at the climbing trees part compared to a lot of them dudes, but I was good with the map and the land nav. So like we almost won that. And I made some network connections at that point. A couple months later, I showed up at my first tree climbing competition. Again, everybody's better than me. And, but I didn't know that because the event that we went to, they had this like 90-foot vertical obstacle course. So they put you on belay and they had like, I'll get a picture of it and show it to you at some point. But it was literally like 10-foot tiers, 9 of them with different obstacles, different ropes, branches. And at the very end of it, dude had taken like a small sapling. You know how they taper down? Mm-hmm. Flip that son bitch upside down.
Also, it got smaller as it went up.
At 80 feet, when you got to the last obstacle, it was a upside down freaking cone. And you're like, dude, I had nothing. I'm 240 at this point. Right? And so I'm dragging my 240-pound ass up this 90 feet of obstacles. And the top, bro, like I got to the top in like 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And I had nothing in the forearm. And they're like, you don't have to finish, bro. I'm like wrapped around this pole, like pulling my way up the top of the thing. Got it done. And I was like 5th place out of these 90 people. 45 of those 90 were regular, like, guys that just could not complete that task. Smokers, regular drinkers, like people that weren't living an active lifestyle. They just did tree work. And that's another like huge part of our industry. You get people who, there's levels to everything, right? Like you've got people that get up and treat this as a job. They get up, they do their job, they get off every day, they eat bull crap, they drink a 12-pack or a 24-pack, a 30-pack or 3 of them, and then they get up the next day and repeat that process, and they never give their chance they never give their body a chance to get back to it. So I was somewhere between those guys and these guys where I wanted to be. And it was like, oh, okay, I kind of belong here. I'm going to show up. I'm going to sign up for this competition. Didn't make it into the competition. Like the night before that competition starts, I'm on Facebook just looking at all the free shit they're giving away. Like, man, they're giving away all this equipment. This is so cool. Showing my girl on Facebook. She's like, I don't care. And some dude gets on that little group that I was looking at, and he's like, man, I can't make it. Last minute, I got to drop out. The first person that wants to go to this competition can have my ticket for free. It's a $250 admission. And I'm like, we live in Dallas. And I'm like, baby, somebody just gave me a $250 ticket into this competition. We're loading up the car. We're driving 14 hours to Indianapolis tonight. Like, we're loading up and going. And at the time, our daughter was young enough. She went to grandma's house, and both of our daughters went to grandma's house. And it was like a Wednesday night, Thursday night, and we just hopped in the car and drove 14 hours overnight to Indianapolis. And I showed up. That was my first mistake. So I pounded like 2 NOS energy drinks, and I'm running off NOS and bad decisions, and I drive all the way to Indy. And my gear was shit. Like, I had nick in my ropes. I had somebody steal a bunch of my equipment. Like, I left that training event and I bought all the new shit that I needed to buy, all the shit they had. And I come to Texarkana like 2 months later, get all that shit stolen right out the back of my truck.
Oh, no.
At the Motel 6, bro. Like, got caught lacking on Summer Hill. Got caught lacking. And I pulled up, and like I said, my daughter was young at the time. She was like 2 at this point. And so I brought her with me. My wife was working a full-time job. We weren't doing the daycare thing yet. She was 2 years old. So I brought her with me. I'd get up in the morning from the hotel, give her stuff, take her to my grandma's house over here behind the pre-K at LE, and do tree work all day, and then pick her up and go to the hotel at night. And I got caught lacking because I took the baby in the house, set up the little crib and everything, never looked back and checked my gear because I always put it in the cab. Well, I didn't after work that day. And
just one day.
One day, bro. They caught me for like $2,000. So I didn't replace it that week. Get to this competition on like gear that would have been what you used in the 90s, basically. And they lit my ass up. So I didn't understand about gear inspection or like how to maintain or inspect the things that we trust our life with, like rope mainly. No. Like, so I'm like, oh, this rope's this damn thick. If I nick a little bit of it, that ain't no big deal. You know, it's still going to hold me. It's good for 10,000 pounds. Not thinking about how that rope's constructed and maybe the cover and the core sharing the load. And so I've got nicks in this rope, and these dudes at these safety-minded individuals that are checking gear just lay into my ass. So I bought another $2,000 worth of stuff that day. Showed up the next morning, still hadn't ate hardly shit, like ate a sandwich that day. I'm still running off adrenaline at Indianapolis. So this is all building up to the funniest part of this. Next day, we start the competition. First event comes. I get up that morning, you know what I'm saying? Okay, we're going to get a good breakfast, get ready for the day. I buy my breakfast. Still worried about getting my wife right. Drive around, run around, get to the competition, drink another NOS energy drink.
Oh, no.
As I'm running up to the event, still breakfast unate in the back of the car. So I've had like a Jersey Mike sub in 24 hours. Bro, first thing they have me do is it was a team-based event, this competition. The way they determined that you would win was it was individuals being scored on their team base. It was like group projects. So everything was a 4-person team, but your 4-person team switched every time you ran. So the idea was the best teammate would have the average highest score and end up winning the competition. Someone that's a good friend of mine now won that. But, bro, I get to the first event. They're like, yeah, we need somebody to go set that block in the top of the tree. It's like 60 feet to where they want this rigging pulley hung so we could pick up something, move it over an obstacle, and win this challenge. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Bro, everybody there is better than me. But instead of saying like, hey, I'm 240, I should probably stay on the ground and like tie some shit up and let one of you more advanced climbers, like what do you need? What's the team need, bro?
Yeah, what's the team need?
Yeah, okay, third. And I didn't know shit about shit. So I set the rope, get my throw line set, which is how we get a rope in a tree, set that up, and I pull the rope up. No type of protection over the tree or nothing. Like I'm climbing in the way that most people you're going to see climb. The rope's moving over the tree. So over time, that's creating heat, creating friction. It can damage the outer areas, the cambium and the stuff of the tree, the vascular tissue. Heat, friction creates heat. So if you're running high friction over an extended period of time, you could potentially damage certain species like a birch tree or something with a soft bark. So they don't allow you in competition to do anything. Like we've got 50 climbers running through these trees, sometimes 80 climbers running through these trees. So what I do one time may not damage the tree, but 50 of us doing it's going to definitely cause damage. So they put protocols in place to protect the tree, protect the climbers, and all this. So we get to the rope set. These boys basically watch me pull this rope up. I get set and I'm finna just climb with no time for protection. I'm just raw dogging the tree. And they're like, you can't do that. It took 10 minutes to get to this point. And I'm like, well, what can I do? And they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, can I just tie it off right here and just climb up the rope? And they're like, yeah, you can do that. And I knew how to do this. It's called SRT, SRS climbing. And it's what I was talking about, just walking up the rope.
Are you talking about like army style, like military style, just, going up the rope?
Yeah. And so I was just going to walk up the rope. And there's certain equipment that you use for that. And I only had one of those things. But none of that mattered because I'm doing it for the team. Like, I'm going to get up there and tie that block on. Bro, I hadn't had no food in 24 hours. And I start climbing. And like, I've got this 1 foot ascender and then my hands. And I'm like, look like an inchworm, basically, 240 pulling. I say it looked like a monkey fucking a football going up the rope. And this is on YouTube, actually, still. You can see like a little piece of this. And I get to the top of the tree and I'm like dry heaving. And I can't talk.
Oh, no.
I'm thinking I'm overheating. It's 60 degrees outside in September. Like, it's 60 degrees. And I'm like, what's going on? I've never felt nothing like this. And I'm just heaving. And they're like, Dustin, are you okay? And I go to say something to them, and I can't get no words out. So, again, we haven't got the aerial rescue part yet. So they stop the competition, and they initiate a rescue. And, bro, like, these dudes, think about, like, if you caught those dudes that go to the range every weekend, you know what I'm saying? They're just waiting on that chance for something to pop off, and they get that active shooter. That's kind of what's going on here. These dudes train countless hours.
Yeah, they're ready for the rescue.
They're ready for the rescue. They never get to do a rescue, and now somebody needs a rescue at this competition. So they shut this down. I've got now a bunch of my good friends, but at the time, these were like legends to me, like Facebook famous, social media famous. And they're like, Dustin, stay there. We're going to come get you. No, bro, I'm going to die on this rope before you come get me out of this tree. And so like, I done muscled my way to the top of this branch at 60 feet. And I just kind of like rolled off into my climbing system. And they're like, stay there. We're coming to get you. And I just start coming down the tree, bro. I get like 6 feet off the ground where they can reach me. And they start stripping my pants off. They pull me to the ground, lay me on the ground, bro, laid out. And I see cameras like this, you know what I'm saying? So there's cameras out here. And I'm just like, I know that they're broadcasting this live on YouTube. First competition they've ever done this at. And I'm just laying here like, I imagine there's probably 10,000 people watching this right now, just laid out, bro. Pants getting pulled off. And so that was my first competition experience. Like, could not have gone worse. Pissed right down my leg. And, but I was addicted at that point. Like, I saw this and I was like, whoa. Okay, if everybody here is that much better than me, this is where I need to be. And 2 years later, I got to another comp and did not nearly as bad, but still very poorly. Like, I didn't have any rules, nothing, just showed up and I just started competing. And it was kind of a trial by fire thing. I showed up and got my head busted and was like, okay, I suck. Everybody here is better than me. I need to stay around these people as much as I possibly can. And that progressed into my first complete competition in 2018. I competed in an independent competition called the Natural State Tree Climbing Championship. It's Arkansas's first competition, was my first competition, basically. So the way our organization is set up, it's based in chapters, right? So Texas is its own chapter. Arkansas is a part of the southern chapter with, you know, all the way to North Carolina, Louisiana. I think Georgia is its own chapter, but Arkansas being so far to the west, they don't really get a lot of events out this way because most of their chapter population is concentrated on the East Coast out there. Okay. So a group of guys in Arkansas put on a competition for Arkansas so that based on the same rules, but a little bit more lax with like the formalities in the rules, right? Like, so a same scoring system, but they're not assholes about it. Like, they encourage new climbers to come out and participate. And I had already signed up for our Texas competition, which is our sanctioned event. It's the chance to represent your chapter at the international level and at the regional level, excuse me. And I'd signed up and I had no idea. I had no rule book. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. So I show up in Arkansas, get my head busted again. Like, didn't DQ anything, didn't have to get rescued out of the tree this time. Actually tried to do an aerial rescue this time and got 26th place out of 32 climbers. 2 weeks later, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make up for this in Texas. I'm going to make up for it. 32nd out of 40. Like, dropped. did worse because the formalities were in play. Like the little things the nuances that matter, just like when you go to play any sport, right? There's those few things like you can go out there and hoop all day, but if you suck, like you better just play 21 because if you don't know how to do a pick and roll or what you're supposed to do when this guy picks up that guy, then like I'm gonna stay over here and just play 21 so I don't piss nobody off. And so that's the kind of the thing I was dealing with was I had no idea. I climbed trees all day. I could get from that point to that point. I could cut at that point. I could cut any tree down that I came across. I was proficient in my career, but the game is more. It's just that it's a game. It's learning to play the game.
Yeah, playing by their rules.
Yeah, and there's a whole rule book to it. But showed up and got my head busted again. But I'm an addict, basically. So having an addictive personality, and every time I showed up at one of those events, on Monday I was a better climber. So I show up Saturday, I had something actionable that I could put into play that made me safer, made me more likely to go home to my kids at night. It made me more efficient in my craft. It made me more profitable as a business owner, because when I'm doing 12 hours for one tree in 2017, in 2020, I was doing that same tree in 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah,
like I'm just cutting. I'm thinking more efficiently because I'm surrounding myself with, I've said it a few times. It's like if you're looking to go learn about war, you go wherever the warriors gather and they talk about the weapons that won battles. Well, that's what these competitions and these events are for us. Like we're going to the people who have got hundreds of years of combined experience, and it's free. Like they say the game ain't supposed to be told or sold, or that these folks will just give it away. Like they're competing against you, but they want to see you do well. It's almost like time trials. Like they're more worried about how well they do instead of how well you do. Everybody's pushing everybody forward. So like it took me forever to show up at these comps because I thought it was me versus you. I got to be ready to bust your ass when I get there, right? Like I got to be ready to win. Bro, showed up and everybody's just like, here, no, do it like this. Try like this. You want to borrow some gear? Like, oh, you don't have that? You should try this. This is what I saw when I got up there. So don't step this way, step that way, and you'll have a better route. And I'm like, why would you tell me this?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it's continued. Now I won Texas after that. So progressed through that. I got a chance to compete in Texas in 2023. Finally got that win after 5 years of chasing it. Learning the game, learning the rules, mastering that as best I could. I made it into the Masters Challenge, which is like our championship round, basically. And so the first one I ever made it into, I won. So like I've kept myself out of this because the game, like I climb trees, I cut trees, I'll come to your house, I do the work, but I didn't dedicate adequate amount of time to training the game. So I'd go get what I got from the situation and I'd go back to it and never really just break down the rules or focus on honing that part of the craft until I got tired of getting my head busted. Bro, that sucks after a while.
Yeah, losing, but it's a good motivator though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was fueled by failure. Trial by fire was the best way for me to learn. So I met people much smarter than me that have shown up and they go volunteer at 2 or 3 of them to learn the things. And then they go compete. And I'm like, nah, I suck as a spectator. I don't want to watch you do it. Like I want to jump in there and do it. I don't want to sit. It's like you hoop a lot. I don't want to sit on the bleachers and watch you play basketball. No,
if I wanted to sit, I couldn't just sit at the bleachers to learn to get better at basketball.
No, exactly. So I got to go do that thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And then I found it, and it's taken me all over the country, bro. Like Hawaii to Alaska, based off connections that were met at these competitions. And that was the second part of it. Like once I found it, it was, where'd you come from? Like before COVID, obviously. But 2018, 2019, I was meeting people from all over the world in my little part of the world. I'm like, bro, this is wild. You came from where? To climb some shit and ring some bells. Like, hell yeah, bro, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing that a lot of these folks were working around these events, right? So they'd fly in from Ohio, go to Florida, and then spend 3 weeks out there making money and not miss a beat. And so they're having a 3-week vacation, going to the beach after work every day, sleeping in a hammock, kicking it. And then I met somebody in 2019 that was like, hey, bro, you should come out to Hawaii. And I'm like, what? He's paying like $500 a day. And I'm like, I should come out to Hawaii, bro. That sounds like a good idea. And then COVID happened.
Oh, damn.
But COVID happened after I'd already taken that opportunity. So like I was on Maui. I flew to Maui the first week of March, 2020. And so like work was slow. You remember how rainy it was 2020, that first part of that year? So we're getting started. I'm like, man, we got 3 weeks of rain in the forecast. I've had a good February. I don't want to be out sitting on my ass for 3 weeks and be broke when April starts right now. And it's supposed to be April showers and we got 3 weeks of rain in March. So I took a chance and flew out to Maui to work. And I get there and I'm there for like 1 week and they start like closing schools. And
damn COVID.
Yeah. And they start hitting and I'm like, oh shit. Now I'm in the middle of the ocean, which is cool as shit. I'm like, man, I can eat off the trees out here. Like, is the world going to shut down? But my kids are in Texarkana. My wife's in Texarkana. The family, the thing I'm supposed to protect's in Texarkana. And she was doing like Poshmark at that time. So she's going to the post office every day. And Poshmark's blowing up. Everybody's sitting at the house. So she's going to do these deliveries. I'm like, we're sitting on 9 acres. Why the hell are you leaving the house? Like, get shit delivered. Stop. What are you doing? You need to stop leaving the house and moving around. And my wife was just doing her sales on Poshmark. I was like, well, you think y'all could get them here safely? Like, because they just closed school down. The whole purpose of me going to Hawaii was to build some connections and take the kids back out there for summer. I was like, yeah, we're going to go out here and we're going to live the island life for the summer. Summer started like March 20th. And so she flew the family out. I was on Maui at that point. Maui's heavily tourist-based. And so the homie on Maui ran out of work. Like, I worked like 2 days that first week. And he's like, yeah, bro, I don't know what to do. All right. Made $1,000. I covered the flight in a little bit. But I'm here now. So, like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah. And so we're sitting like Sunday night, sitting on this dude's garage, like watching the sunset on Maui. Like, man, this is awesome. And he calls a homie. I didn't know where Hilo, Hawaii was at this time. And like, if you've ever seen, you ever brought the Hawaiian rolls? The sweet Hawaiian rolls?
Yeah.
They're made in Hilo, Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time. I found that out after. But it's on Big Island. It's a really, really wet side of the island. And it's a small little town on Big Island, Hawaii. Well, he calls the homie that lives Backyard Monkey. Shout out Justin Barrios. If you see this, you might, maybe not. But he has a company that's tied in with state contracts, local contracts, like a fully established company out there. And they call this dude and they're like, yeah, we got our friend Dustin here. He came in from Texas. You know what I'm saying? Good dude, put my life on it. I was like, bro, why'd you say some shit like that? You know how hard I got to go work now? Like, you don't win vouch for
your life on it.
You don't put my neck on that, bro. I can't. I got to go work my ass off for this dude. And did not know what was coming. Like, I had to go work my ass off anyway. Hawaii tree work, like, is a different kind of thing. Like, we do tree work here, and it sounds awesome to go to this beach paradise and do tree work, but that shit's a jungle, bro.
Yeah, what type of trees are there? It isn't all palm trees, is it?
No, it's not. It's all kind of, and so they're dealing with a massive problem with invasive species here. So we use the word invasive species here all the time, but it's like Bradford pears for us. Like, an invasive species in the continental US is bad for us, but it shuts down in the winter kind of thing. Like, it's bad for the local environment. It's bad for the plants. It's always bad for the plants. Sometimes it's bad for the animals, but in Hawaii, it's bad for the people. Like, bro, they got trees. With the little pink flowered mimosa trees we got here, they get a cousin of that tree in the same species, Albesias. They get 175 feet or so tall.
Damn.
And they grow up to an inch a day. It's the fastest growing plant tree in the world. It up to an inch a day, but they're invasive. They came over from some part of Asia at some point.
An inch and a half a day?
An inch a day.
Oh, an inch a day. But still, that's wild.
Yeah, so think about a little.
Well, then you could sit there and watch it grow?
Essentially, basically, like, bro, it's the trees I was seeing. I thought they were bullshitting me.
Yeah.
So I get there. The first one they tell me about, they're like, yeah, this thing is like, they told me how fast it grew. And they're like, yeah, that's a 12, 15-year-old tree. And I was like, the tree's like 60 feet tall. There's no fucking way. Like, quit fucking with me. I know I just got here, bro, but I'm not a new guy. I've been cutting trees for a little bit. And they're like, no, seriously. Like, and think about how the mimosa breaks, right? Like, it's super breaky, super easy to deal with, and super light. So this thing, it's 175 feet in some cases, in extreme cases, and they grow like weeds, bro. So they're having to battle Albizia trees, Cecropia trees. Most of their native plants aren't what's active and what we're dealing with, like, because they're growing like an oak tree would grow here, right? Like, so Bradford pears in our area, you see them shit split every time the wind blows, right? You see little old lady's got the little white flowers in the spring, and then tree broke in the yard in the summer. Yeah. Every time the storms come through. Same kind of situation there. If it's growing so fast and putting so many wood fibers out, they can't be strong. Like, it can't be structurally sound because it's growing too damn fast.
No, yeah.
So they're, 150 foot, even if it's light, bro, if that falling and crushing the house, and they're not building houses like we're building out here. You know what I'm saying? It's a much smaller, more, what am I looking for? I don't even know. It's not, they're not
just
doing
cheaper made.
Yeah,
it's
island style
structure.
Bro. Like,
yeah,
they're living more outside than they are inside. So we built all this shit to protect us from this absolute heat they've got living areas that are predominantly outside. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's got a lanai. Everybody's out on the porch. So they're out under these things and having to maintain them. So tree work in Hawaii was more like I went to the same properties 2 or 3 times in some cases, just cutting back these invasive species, like sidewalling them. The kind of tree work that you see companies doing here, like we're going to go about right there on the property line. We're just going to cut that right. Hit it with that. But that's what we're having to do to maintain safety for people. And so I did that for 3 months. It was the longest I'd ever worked with one crew. Like I show up to Big Island, the family flies in, and
so they were there all summer?
They were, bro, we stayed from March until June.
That's awesome.
Bro, so like that was the one thing that was cool about the whole situation. Like everybody was freaking out during the COVID lockdown, right? Like everybody's losing their shit. Texarkana's crazy. Texas is crazy in general. The whole fucking world is crazy.
What was Hawaii like?
It was also crazy, but it just shut down all the tourist shit. So we were living like locals for 3 months.
Because there was a lot less traffic, huh?
There was no traffic, and then there was no tourists because you couldn't, like, it was a 2-week quarantine if you came from off island. But I was an essential worker, right?
There you go.
And so that mattered there. So I had a whole paper, you know what I'm saying? Had the documentation, never got stopped, had actually got to use the piece of paper. But I was like, hell yeah, I got it in my wallet. They can't fuck with me. No. They put us right there with nurses because of how important maintaining that invasive shit was for us out there. So we, the family, I rented a house in Volcano Village just outside of the Kilauea National Park.
Volcano Village?
Yes, bro.
Let me talk to the camera real fast. First of all, Joe Teel is never living nowhere called Volcano Village. Anyways.
So, it was literally like a mile from the entrance to the Kilauea Volcanoes National Park, like the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. We're in the...
inactive volcano?
No. Kilauea is well, at that point, it wasn't actively erupting, but since, it's the youngest land on Earth, they call it. It's like where the lava's coming out and running to the ocean. Like, I got to work, bro. That was the cool thing about Big Island. So Maui is mostly like dormant, right? It's not actively producing lava and actively producing land and shit. Well, Big Island is an active volcano. And so like we were working in places like the local, bro, it's a whole different type of place. Like we were doing tree work. We're living in Volcano Village, which is like 3,700 to 4,200 foot elevation.
Volcano Village. It's got me fucked up.
Yeah. It's literally, bro, Volcano of Hawaii. That was on Haonanea Street in Volcano. And so like every time I tag it, it was crazy to see like, bro, this is like, we're legit in a place where lava could come up in your backyard.
Yeah.
And we worked in places where that was the case. Like you felt like Thanos, they had lava foam. Lava foam, bro, it's like rock. It looks like rock, but you can crush it into powder and it fucks your chains up. It's like, because when the eruption happened...
like chainsaw chains?
Yeah, chainsaw. Okay, so we're cutting the trees and we were working in this place called Leilani Estates and they had, most people probably haven't heard of it, but it was the Fissure 8 cinder cone. Like it was a neighborhood just had a fucking volcano come up in somebody's backyard. Like, bro, like it's straight in the HOA. Like they have a road here. Now that road is gone. Whoever's property that was is no longer there. That's a lava flow now. And we're going to build roads around where that's at. It's a whole different way of approaching it, bro. Like, and then they respect that in a different kind of way. Like it's a sacred situation. Like Pele visit, you know what I'm saying? It's a whole deal. And it was a crazy thing to experience.
They probably have a way greater respect for land in general than we do, huh?
Absolutely. It was a weird place. So growing up in the South, they have a completely different culture. That is one of the few places, like it's almost like being in a different country almost, right? Because that's the place where brown people have kept their culture. Brown people have the power essentially there. Like it's a weird place to be a white dude for sure. Like I have, my wife's black. My daughters are mixed and black. So when I travel through the South, like I'm getting out in Alabama when we're going to a tree climbing competition. I'm walking in every gas station. I still do it sometimes in Texarkana, just walking around making eye contact, making sure ain't nobody being sideways with my daughters. Out there, I didn't have to worry about that. Out there, it was dealing with my own respect, which is a much easier thing to deal with because of what I was there to do. Like their word for us is howley. Right?
Howley.
Yeah, howley. That's the I forget what the exact term means, but yeah, I'm one crazy howley fucker. Yeah. And but it worked because I was there serving a purpose, right? I wasn't there as a tourist. I was there adding value to the community, and I was working with a local company that had a hell of a name. So I'm running around in the backyard monkey truck. So like all the tourist stuff is shut down. So we're having to go where the locals at. But like if I pull up where the locals at, bro, somebody gonna try to put knots on my head most places.
Yeah.
Because I'm not welcome there. We're outsiders. We're out-of-staters. But they were cool with the kids. My kids are playing with the locals out there. Dude, I did an Easter egg hunt in Volcano Village. So I'd never seen a place like this. Like I mentioned, we rented a place, but this lady, it was Airbnb. And it was like a 4-bedroom Airbnb. It's like $1,600 for 2 weeks, bro. They were busting my head. But, bro, it was horrible. They were busting my head, bro. And I thought it was going to be for a couple weeks. You know, the world's going to go back to normal. They're going to shut down for 2 weeks, 2 weeks to flatten the curve or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're going to be in Hawaii for a couple weeks. Kids going to go back to school. I got this.
Just never stopped.
No, it never stopped. And then they shut down the Airbnbs in Hawaii. Like you couldn't have vacation rentals. But because I was an essential worker, that lady structured like a long-term rental agreement with me. It didn't drop the price. It was still $1,600 every 2 weeks for the entirety of the time we were out there. So I was getting my head busted with that. But everything else about it, like it was 2 lots, bro. They had 7-foot tall ferns. Like the ferns were trees. Where Volcano is located, it's basically a rainforest. Like they get so much water during the year, it's classified as a rainforest, but it's a fern forest. So it's like these giant ass fucking, looks like some shit out of Fern Gully or Land Before Time walking through it. Like coming from here, my brain didn't register like moss on everything and no palm trees up in Volcano. Like it's, they have the native trees called the ohia. And these trees are small, almost like it's the closest thing to an oak you would get out there. Like they've got dense hardwood. They don't grow very fast. They've got these little, you've probably seen red or little yellow flowers in pictures from Hawaii. A little tree with some little red flowers on it. Well, they can grow within 90 days of the cooling of the lava flow. And it's like the first thing to fucking grow when the lava cuts off. And so they grow slow as hell. They're small. They suck if you're trying to get a rope set into them, but they're like, they've got this, there's something about like this little almost insignificant tree that you got to respect. Like, nah, this is the youngest. This is the only thing that can grow on new earth, essentially. You know what I'm saying? Like the shit cools off and this thing starts growing and starting whatever that ecosystem is going to be. But it was cool as shit to be in a place where my learning got jump started. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been cutting trees in Texas for years. I've been bouncing around the country. I thought I knew some shit. And I get out there and I got to ask hey man, can I tie into that? Is that going to hold my big ass? They were speaking
English since it was a tourist type place, or?
Oh yeah. Everybody was. We worked with some Tongans, and like all the Hawaiians spoke English. Like I didn't. I've met folks that were.
Do they have their own language?
Yeah. Oh hell yeah. They have an entire culture, bro. Like if you're a native Hawaiian, they have schools that you can only go to if you're a native Hawaiian.
Okay. Cool.
You got to have so much blood in your lineage to even be accepted in the school, and then they got scholarships for it, and they teach traditional Hawaiian culture. They preserve, when I say they preserve that culture, bro, like they teach the old Hawaiian gods. They teach all of that. And so they're raising a generation that respects the land and understands that they're stewards of it. And like the way that they raise their kids out there, bro, I wish like, okay, we're taught sir and ma'am. That's beat into our head as kids, right?
Right.
Well, that's a term of respect. It's non-negotiable. Coming from where we come from, you're going to say sir, you're going to say ma'am. That was only acceptable. But what if like a little kid runs up to you, uncle? That's a term of endearment. So every elder is an uncle and an auntie. If they're not your parents, they're your uncles and auntie. We're cousins. And so now you've bred a sense of family throughout the community that's different than what we've got here. So we might respect somebody, but they're going to hit you with that bless your heart. Yeah, we from that bless your heart area. They're going to just slide out your ass, bless their heart. Well, there it's different. Like if the community's struggling, the family's struggling. And we approach that in a different way. And so that was the biggest takeaway. Like
everybody hears for their self almost.
A lot more for self.
Here's your family.
Yeah.
We're going to deal with our shit. You deal with your shit type deal.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
But when a 3-year-old kid that I ain't never seen this kid in my life, he runs up, uncle, come play. Bro, what are we doing? We building a sandcastle, bro. Let's go.
What are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? Uncle, what's up, nephew? Let's go. Yeah. And that was.
Like all my friends, like, they're not strangers, but like my kids call my best friends uncle and aunt.
They have what we have with our extended chosen families here, like the way you do with your homeboys and the kids growing up.
Yeah.
This is just the natural way of things for the whole community. And like, so when we go up, like we knock on the door, we're coming to do, hey, knock, hello, is anybody home? It's Dustin. I'm here with Tree Care THK or whoever I'm representing at that point. Well, they just showing up, oh, aloha, auntie, it's Backyard Monkey. And it's just a whole nother vibe there, bro. It's so awesome. It was so awesome. And then being there to serve a purpose and working with local Hawaiians, people that grew up in that community and had a reverence for it. And also like the history that they have. Like they have their own legends, their own histories, and their own way of viewing everything, their own music. Like it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I went from that, came back from Hawaii, and then ended up going to Alaska the same year. So
on the Hawaii deal,
yeah.
You left. That was before the fires in Maui, right?
Yeah. So that was a year ago this week. Matter of fact, yeah, the Lahaina fire was like yesterday.
I listened to Tulsi Gabbard. She's a politician. She's from Hawaii.
Yeah.
She was gonna run for president against Biden last time.
Okay.
But anyway, she was on Rogan. She's pretty cool.
Okay.
And anyway, she was talking about the fires, and her and Rogan talked for hours. It was like 2 or 3 hours, and they talked for about 30, 45 minutes about the fires.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid that that somebody started them fires in order to buy the land.
That's so
like rich folks.
There are several,
which would be heartbreaking, especially like after you explain how those people are. Because they say the people are down bad.
So that's a whole nother. So while we were when the Lahaina wildfire or when the Lahaina fire happened, I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, competing at the International Tree Climbing Championship. So we've got some of the best arborists from all over the world in this one place. Everybody's hanging out. It's a lighthearted event, and then Lahaina's burning. Like Maui's on fire, and it wasn't just Lahaina. Like Maui was burning across like on multiple places on the island. Lahaina was just the most populated and the worst hit situation. From the way I understand it is like that fire blew through that city in about 18 minutes. Like, so you had like a perfect storm situation. You had some kind of storm off the coast, like off into the ocean close to them, pushing hella wind. And then so when the fire started, it was just like a tinderbox, basically. And I've had friends that were working in that community. I've had friends that lost everything in that fire. Like one of the guys I was contracting with when I was out there this last time, we went back to Hawaii in February, and I'll touch on that. But he lost his base yard, all of his equipment, all of his trucks. Everything he did to provide a service to that community went up, his house, everything. And they're sitting there just trying to figure out like we can't even start servicing or rebuilding from this until we figure out what's going on with this. Another one of my friends, Bobby, the person who initially took me to Maui that started the whole thing of my family getting to see that place, he was working in Lahaina the day that fire happened. He was like driving people. Dude grew up in the neighborhood. Like he was raised in Lahaina from like the age of 5. And so he's in the community working. That's where he makes his living. He lives about 10 minutes down the road in another small community called Napili. And he was hauling people out of the burn area in his chip truck. And so like we've got friends that were island locals that were in Albuquerque with us, like checking on family. We're getting calls trying to get a hold of my friend Bobby, who wasn't answering the phone, obviously, with all that happening.
He was busy saving
people.
He
was busy. He was doing some shit. And we were just like, is Bobby okay? I mean, because selfishly we're worried about everybody, but selfishly we're worried about our friends, right? Like are my people good? Or I'm checking on all the people I can get a hold of. And fast forward after that happened, like, the banyan tree, there's all kinds of topics around that fire. But the thing that touched me the most was there's a bunch of kids in that community, right? Like hundreds of families get displaced. Thousands of people are displaced by this fire. But at that point, it wasn't registering me like to the youngest members of that community. And that's fast forward to February. I got invited out to go to Lahaina and put on an event for the kids that got displaced by that fire. And we were doing something, there was no name for it. It really wasn't on social media or anything, but my buddy Bobby, who doesn't have Facebook or any kind of, dude, if you can call him, you can talk to him, but other than that, you're not going to find this dude anywhere unless you see him in person. Like, he's still old school. He's in his late 40s. He's going to be somewhere. Otherwise, you ain't going to see Bobby. But he's active, and he lets the things that like weigh heavily on his heart, and he takes action. Well, Bobby was renting ponies. Like every month. So from the time that fire happened in August, in September, he started renting ponies on the island, and he'd go to where these kids were being housed. The place we went to was the Royal Lahaina Resort. And so like all these places that are normally set up for tourists, they're getting government programs, and they've got people with the Red Cross and stuff. So there's like outreach programs set up in some of these resorts and shit. And hundreds of families are living in these places right now, like packed on top of each other. And seeing the kids run around is different. And they're obviously like skittish to somebody like me, because since since they've had this happen, everybody's came to help, right? Like everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to do something. So they've had all kinds of people come through, but Bobby's local and he's been renting these ponies every month. And every month they do this pony day, something he can do for the kids to smile. Well, one of them days, probably December, January, they pulled out some climbing ropes and they were doing some tree work. And the kids see that and they're like, what the? Man, horses, I want to see what's going on over here. And they had a girl there that did like the silks and the aerial stuff. And so she showed some kids how to like use their toes and like talking about barefoot Hawaiian kids. Like we talked about that at your house the other day.
Yeah.
Like these kids are running around touching the earth. So they ain't got shoes on and boots on. Like I do tree work in boots.
Yeah.
I keep my feet protected. Well, they're climbing rope without boots and stuff like this. And they're just hooked. They just want to do that. But we don't know we can't just randomly throw kids on a rope and didn't have any equipment or anything out there. So Bobby had this idea and he's like, okay, I want to do like a climbing day, kids climb. And we're like, okay, kids climb. He's like, no, I want to do a zip line. So now, bro, just from that idea and making a few phone calls, he called me in February and was like, I need your energy. I need you out here. I need you out here for the kids. You've had just a couple interactions with me at this point, but I'm pretty high energy.
High energy,
and
for sure.
I engage. I'm just a big ass hairy kid, dude. Like I never grew up. I found out I could get paid to climb trees and I never have to grow up. So I just engage with kids on their level, animals and kids. I'm on the ground. I'm rolling around. I'm playing. And so he knows that and has seen that. So he's like, I need you. And I'm not understanding. Like, I'm like, bro, why do you need me out here? Bro, I'm dealing with kids that like, some of them watch family members die. Some of them, you know what I'm saying? All of them lost everything.
Yeah.
And some of them had, their own injuries to overcome and deal with. But the psychiatric or psychological effects of what they dealt with was something I'd never even comprehended. Like I had a rough childhood, but bro, they watched their whole city burn. Like imagine you sitting here and you just watch all this shit burn down.
Yeah.
Like and 7 years old, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy. Or 3 years old or 4 years old and like 13 teenagers. And like it was kids ranging from like when I was a fuck up down to where like 3-year-olds and 18 months old that were in this program. And we get there and we spend 4 days. Fast forward, we get out there.
So you've been to Maui since it burned?
Yes. Yeah, we went to I've got friends that are they've just wrapped up in like the last month, the tree work arborist aspect of cleaning up the burn zone. And so now they're just getting started to like the rebuilding aspect. Cause like all of those trees that burned, they didn't just turn to ash, right? Like the fire blew through in 18 minutes and then it's gone. And now there's like, they had to go through, there was a whole process. The beginning of that process was assessing the damage. And part of that was a team of arborists went through and they had to mark the trees that were going to survive and the trees that weren't going to survive. And then there was government funding put in place to go in and just mitigate all those hazards. Like come through, they had grapple saw cranes. I've got friends that have spent months just working directly in contact with this burned up shit, cleaning up the trees. And now they're done with that. And now they're starting to like give out loans to get folks, get their property back and start building and doing their thing. I've got an old platoon sergeant from the Army that's a mortgage officer and his wife's in realty. So they're out there in Hawaii doing stuff like that. But the tree guys have just been the first, like same thing with insurance, like storm blows through, tree falls on your house. First person that's got to show up is the tree guy. Because nobody else can get their job done with the fucked up tree over their head. So these guys have been cleaning up, that whole city for months. And we went back out there in February for the Hawaii Tree Climbing Championship, which is every February. This year it was on Big Island again. So I got to go see my Big Island family, spend a few days working. Bro, I was out there sick as fuck. Like, like February flu was going around real hard here. I got flu A. And then like I'm sitting at the house like about to die. And he's like, I need you out here. I'm like, yeah, end of the week, I'm probably feeling better. Get on a plane, fly for 7 hours. I ended up with like bronchitis. And I thought I had pneumonia. So I'm like coming off the flu. I get out there and I'm still coughing. Never got my energy levels back up. Like I can't fucking breathe, dude. I'm dying. We do the competition, get to Maui, and we had 4 days to prep this event. So we get there, we had to prune the trees because like we're putting, like I said, 3-year-olds in some cases in these fucking trees. So we had, deadwood, monkey pod is a tree that they have out there that I didn't mention. So I talked about the invasives when you asked that. Monkey pods are like, imagine those live oaks you see in Florida and all through the South with the Spanish moss and shit. Take the Spanish moss out and make them like a tropical tree, but they have that kind of structure, like low, wide, spready. It's just a big ass playground. And that's the trees we were working in for this event. And then there was a big, large rubber tree which is just like it sounds. It's the shit that they take the sap from this tree to produce rubber. It's like the raw material that they use for rubber.
Rubber comes from a tree?
Yeah, bro. Another thing that trees give you. If you're using a rubber band for your workouts, you got shoes on your feet or tires on your car, you need to thank a tree and call an arborist.
There you have it. There you have it. No, I didn't learn.
We ain't got rubber trees in Texas, so that only applies if you're in a tropical environment.
Yeah. That's what's up, though. I like that.
Yeah. But so I got to work on this big ass. So it sounds cool, but bro, just like it's white sticky sap, and anything it touches, bro. If you think about how nasty a pine tree sap is, imagine that. But it gets there, a month, 2 month of growing season's worth of pine sap is going to come out of this cut tonight after I make this big ass cut on this tree. So I left my rope in the tree while we were doing this, and I come back the next day and my rope had been touching one of those spots. Bro, I had like this growth of this legit like rubberized sap. Had to rip it up. Thankfully, it like tore off pretty easily and just mildly affected the rope. But like touching, like anything you touch, bro, you touch that shit, it's on you. And I'm hairy, nasty. No. Yeah. It's worse than anything. But we're working on these trees. We get them prepped for this event. And during the process, we're like building the event. So I spent the first 2 days pruning. And then the last day, we're like, we just build zip lines. So we went through, had all the hardware, and hung zip lines from point A to point B. We took all the measurements, had the slopes, like just a bunch of fucking dumbass tree climbers. Just built like a ropes course essentially for the kids, and tested it all. We had a climbing area for them, and then we had 100, like a 75-foot zip line, and like a 150, 200-foot zip line, and they were just running up and down, and we built like imagine like a rock climbing wall. Well, we took wood cookies and like bored through them with chainsaws and put straps. And so we just ran the cargo straps through them. Yeah. And then they made rock climbing holds. Oh, cool. And so put them on a belay, put them in a harness. So my wife was out there. Like I said, I didn't actually mention that. My wife and kids flew out there to help. And I fucked up my elbow today. My daughter was out there as our crash test dummy, essentially. So I tested all the stuff to make sure it was safe. And then we had my daughter come out there, and like we gave her a job. She was our small tier. So she had to make sure everything was kid friendly. So we made her climb all the ropes, and just giving her a reason to be active. And then also made her climb up and test drive all these zip lines. And dude,
which was fun.
Dude, obviously, horrible day of work. And she got rewarded with ice cream and money. So she was winning resort ice cream and money. But we get out there and get the shit built, and like it's still not really setting on me what this is like the impact this could have. Like I'm just playing with rope with the homies, and we're like solving problems. Typically when I come cut your trees, it's almost mindless at this point. Like removals are not a huge amount of thinking at this point, right? It's just we're doing math. I'm gonna take this and cut on it until it looks like a stump. There's a lot of engineering and applied physics that goes into that, but I've done it so many times. It's just a systematic approach at this point. So we get to this, and I've never built a zip line. Now we got to build a platform for the kids to transfer off the tree, safely stand, and switch from the belay to the trolley. Like all the shit. Like you ever was Magic Springs still open when you were growing up? Mm-hmm. So you remember getting up on the trolley and grabbing the thing and sliding on the zip line?
Are you talking about Clear Springs?
No, Magic Springs, like the old school. Maybe not Magic Springs. Yeah, Clear Springs.
Springs.
Magic Springs is in Hot Springs. Yeah, Mod. Yeah. So the trolley, you know what I'm saying? We were out there as kids swinging down,
just going into the water.
Well, this was like we obviously there was no water, so like we had trolleys set up that they had to clip carabiner to carabiner. You're putting these kids in harnesses.
So that like catches you, huh? That makes you stop.
We bring them they climb the tree, they transfer over. We've got a climber in each station, moving the kids over onto this platform. And then we have to like clip them into a stationary backup because like there's liability in this, right? So everybody's signing waivers and stuff, but it's still, you drop somebody's kid out of the tree, bro, there's going to be consequences. And also you're going to you're a horrible human.
Yeah.
So we had
kids. Yeah, we got to take care of the kids.
We had safety backup and safety backup and safety backup. So we're transferring them from belay to a stationary backup, from the stationary backup to a trolley. And then basically like, fuck them kids. Get to kick them off the platform because they're scared, right?
Yeah, go.
So the homie, we had the platform set where you could tilt. He didn't actually have to kick them. There was we anchored this platform with rope, so he would just kind of like tilt his weight forward, and they're sitting in the weight, and then the platform just drops out from under them, and it just and they just get this nice release. But the effect that had on these kids, bro, we weren't ready for it. I'm about teared up out here, so they have this goal. They all want to ride the zip line. Every one of them, like, that's the thing I want to do. But you got to climb the tree to get there. That's scary. Now they got to climb up the scary ass tree. And this was not like, if you took 85% of the people in our city and gave them this situation that we gave these kids and told them they got to climb to 30 feet and jump off this platform to go down the zip line, bro, 90% of those people aren't going to do it. They're, fuck that. It's not worth it.
I would do it.
Yeah, exactly. But there's so many people that are risk averse. Like, you're naturally not going to want to put yourself in harm's way. So we're telling these kids, like, yeah, this is going to be safe. You got to trust us. And they've been through some of the most traumatic shit anybody can ever experience.
Right.
And so you see that start to rear its head when they get ready to go up the tree and how they deal with fear and that fear and traumatic response. So now you've got kids that are bawling and we're just standing at the base of the tree, but they really got to get to that zip line. So now it's that uncle and that family familial relationship that comes into place, because I'm obviously not local, but we had a bunch of local dudes that were arborists. Like the guy that lost his entire base yard, he was out there on belay with the kids. You know what I'm saying? Like just working out there. Because he was from that community. He had his kids out there playing, his wife. And oddly enough, homie's like bigger muscles, smaller beard. So but he looks like me, essentially. So he's a white dude with a beard, and they kept calling me Jake. So like I'm out here like, oh, uncle. I'm like, no, I'm not. He's over there. And now they're confused because there's two bearded white dudes in the helmet trying to figure out, like, hold on, now this ain't right. I can't trust you. I thought you was Uncle Jake. But we're putting these kids up there, and they get to the goal, and they've worked through this entire fearful, traumatic experience to get to the goal, and they get down the zip line, and now the fear is gone. So what they've learned in that process is like, okay, this horrible thing that's in between me and the goal is worth doing, and they get the dopamine release or whatever good chemicals you get from accomplishing a goal and working through a traumatic experience, and we're building that resilience in them. And I don't know if they thought about it when they did it, but seeing that happen, man, it was such like a heavy, happy day. Like we're just sitting there at the end of it. All of us are like, okay, we kind of did something worth doing, but it was heavy. It was super heavy, bro.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool as hell.
But yeah, I keep going all day on the Hawaii thing. That was probably the coolest thing I ever did as an arborist.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
But I think I done burned up your time.
Yeah, I'm worn out. I'm enjoying it though. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I did one earlier, and I worked all day.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, so I'm winding down, but I enjoyed it, and I can bring you back. We can talk about Alaska.
We're gonna have to run it back. We've accomplished like 6 months in 1 year, so
yeah. So we could definitely do it again, though, man. And I definitely appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir.
Social media stuff.
Social media, business pages, Tree Care TXK. We're Google, Facebook, Instagram, Tree Care TXK. Personal stuff is Sawdust in the Wind. I'm easy to find there. I'm Dustin. I'm throwing sawdust in the wind. Facebook, Dustin Goodman. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. No YouTube yet. That's in the works. Gonna kind of check out some stuff around here and start getting some helmet cam videos out and kind of articulate what it means to be an arborist in video form for me.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, for the channel, Joe Teel 180. This is where the 180 creator interviews drop. Like, share, subscribe, do all that cool shit. Appreciate you tapping in. If you lasted this long, we definitely appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, bro. I'm like I appreciate you having me, bro.
Sometimes. Oh man, I had a blast.
Talking to me is like drinking out of a fire hydrant.
No, it's good. I learned a bunch. I learned all kind of shit. So I'm gonna have you back. This has been another episode. Y'all be blessed.